kind of simple, and I'll put it like this. My wife and I love to travel, and we always have these dreams and, these goals of wanting to be able to travel whenever we want to, however we want to. And I think that was honestly the start of it. If you mix that with a little bit of what a lot of people feel in terms of being, I guess, unfulfilled, I won't even say unhappy, but unfulfilled in their 9-to-5 jobs. That was mixed together with just saying, hey, I wanted a different lifestyle. And then a lot of times what happens is you get introduced to all these people that are living that lifestyle that you want, and it's more specifically in real estate. And so that lifestyle, for lack of a better term, is time and freedom. Being able to have your own time, to set your own schedule, and the freedom to make decisions that you want to do based on your happiness.
Welcome to episode 1 of the Byron Thompson series on Circulate. I'm the host and producer of Circulate, Gary Martin, and I just wanted to take this time real quick to introduce you guys to Byron before we get into the episode. Byron is someone I met in 2004. He worked in the corporate work study department of the high school I went to, called St. Martin de Porres High School in Cleveland, Ohio. At the time, he worked right under Tom Bennett, who actually ran the corporate work study program. And Byron, along with Tom, they were tasked with going out into corporate America to get jobs that ultimately students would work at to pay for a portion of their high school tuition. If you're not familiar with the Cristo Rey Network schools and the way the program works, is 1 day a week, high school students from the inner city don't go to school, they go to work to help pay for their high school tuition. And there's schools like St. Martin de Porres and all around the country. Byron played a major role in my life because he was an African-American man that I looked up to, who was also a Division I basketball player. Fast forward to today, Byron and I continue to be very close. And after St. Martin de Porres, he moved on to work in corporate America for a little while. And now he is the owner of Monument Management, which is a property management and real estate service company. In episode 1, you'll hear Byron talk about how he escaped corporate America and achieved the lifestyle that he currently is very proud of, and one that he kind of always wanted. You'll also hear him talk about the importance of extreme ownership as a leader. It's one of the themes I think you'll hear him discuss, or you can feel that is important to him when you listen to the episode. And he'll also touch on a story that you'll hear Rich Clark talk about in his first episode on Circulate. So if you get a chance, go over to Rich's episode 1 and check out the story that I'm talking about, that Rich eloquently tells. That was a very profound moment for him as a new president of the high school. And then, so without further ado, this is episode 1 of the Byron Thompson series on Circulate, and kind of you get to hear him talk about how he went from 0 to 32 team members and manage over 550 units in less than 2 years as a property manager. So thank you guys for listening, and welcome to Circulate. Hello, this is Gary Martin, Circulate, episode 1 with Byron Thompson. Say hello to everyone, Byron.
Hey.
Nice. So Byron is a guy that I've known for about, since 2004, so 14 years now. If you had a chance to listen to episode 1 with Rich Clark, you would know that in the story where Rich talks about being introduced to the African American culture, and Byron was one of those guys that Rich brought up in episode 1 about kind of introducing him to the lessons that he had to learn as a new principal of a school in a neighborhood like where St. Martin de Porres is. In a school where you're kind of helping inner city youth, and you're going from a school with a lot more affluent background to helping students like Cristo Rey Network kids. So over the years, I've known Byron from he was my coach in high school for a little bit. Not a very good coach, but a good property manager. Which is one of the reasons why I asked Byron to be a part of Circulate and be a part of what I'm trying to do here. And So I'm very grateful that he was willing and open to us having to sit down and conversation on a consistent basis. To give you a little bit of background on what Byron does, he does property management, and he focuses on residential property management. And I'll let him tell more about exactly what that entails right here. So I guess, Byron, you can start with exactly what you do and kind of how you got into it and what this last couple of years has been like.
Cool. Well, first of all, let me start by saying congratulations to you, Gary. Circulate, I know you've been working on this a long time, and it's coming to fruition. So, congrats on all your hard work. Basically, I own a property management company and real estate brokerage called Monument Real Estate. We've officially been in business on the brokerage and property management side for 2 years now. I've been investing in real estate and, having my own personal portfolio for going on 10 years now. And how this came to be is really one of those things where, you never expected, to be where you are, and you didn't really know how you got here, but you're here. And by that I mean that I was in corporate America. As you mentioned, I worked at St. Martin, first official job out of college. Worked there for 4 years, left, and was in corporate America, mostly in sales. And then just got introduced to real estate, partly because of my wife, and then partly just because of some friends that I had that were, doing, in terms of investing. They were investing a little bit, they were investing more than me. And so basically I tell everybody this story. I knew I wanted to leave corporate America. Didn't know exactly how, but I knew that I wanted like more residual income. I knew I had this, this lifestyle I wanted to live. So real estate was the natural connection, just like I said, by the friends that I had. And so I literally, at the time I was buying houses, and you'd have to call all these real estate agents to get the lockbox codes, or they would have to show you. And I just got tired of that. So I wanted to get my real estate agent's license just so I could get lockbox codes to buy homes for my own personal portfolio. And that was it. And then again, my wife had already worked in the real estate industry with, a national builder. So she was, I think she was completing her license or her test, but we were both studying at the same time, kind of for two different reasons. But, I took the course and passed it. There was a broker that we knew that had property management. Like I said, I was really ready to get out of corporate America. So we kind of were like, all right, let's buy these homes and let's, get with and let's jump into real estate, 10 toes deep. And about 2 months in, I got introduced to, an investor that kind of spurred my career growth tremendously. And by that, I mean, he was an investor that was buying, 10, 12, 15 houses a month. And so that expedited, me being able to get my broker's license and how that goes. So it went from just wanting to get lockbox codes to wanting to, change my career to having a career that just kind of grew. And I really found my niche and found like what I really was passionate about.
Okay.
And working with investors.
Now, just to back up a little bit, can you explain to people, how did that expedite your broker's license for people that don't know how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a broker. So most people are familiar with like a Keller Williams or a Howard Hanna or a Century 21. Mm-hmm. Those are brokers, and then they have individual agents that work, for that brokerage.
Right.
So when you come into real estate, you get your agent's license, so you're a real estate agent, and then you have to have so much criteria. Like you have to be, an agent for like 2 years. You have to have so many transactions, and then once you complete that, you're now able to go and get your broker's license. And essentially, what it comes down to is just, you don't have to, split your commissions in terms of the transactions, and you're basically, you're the business. You're completely the business owner at that point.
Okay. And then, now you talked about the lifestyle you wanted to live. Mm-hmm. What exactly was that when you kind of were making that decision? Hey, I want residual income.
Yeah, it's something kind of simple, and I'll put it like this. My wife and I love to travel, and we always have these dreams and, these goals of wanting to be able to travel whenever we want to, however we want to. And I think that was honestly the start of it. If you mix that with a little bit of what a lot of people feel in terms of being, I guess, unfulfilled, I won't even say unhappy, but unfulfilled in their 9-to-5 jobs. That was mixed together with just saying, hey, I wanted a different lifestyle. And then a lot of times what happens is you get introduced to all these people that are living that lifestyle that you want, and it's more specifically in real estate. And so that lifestyle, for lack of a better term, is time and freedom. Being able to have your own time, to set your own schedule, and the freedom to make decisions that you want to do based on your happiness.
Mm-hmm. Now, before you take me further into where you have this investor and you're getting, and you guys, and he's buying 12 to 15 homes a month, I want you to take me back just a little bit to your time at St. Martin and a couple of lessons that you got from there, or some things you picked up on from guys that you were around at that time.
Man, St. Martin was I always tell people, the most beautiful experience in my life. Coming from the environment that I come was, which basically, middle class America, suburbs. I left college. I knew, believe it or not, a nun that was a good friend of the basketball program in college at University of Akron. So she's good friends with us, having us over for dinner, took us to different games. She actually, not to get off too far, but she knew Lenny Wilkins, so we went to a Toronto, this was the time he was coaching with the Toronto Raptors, went up to Toronto for basketball games. Just turned into a really good friend of mine.
Do you remember her name?
Sister Kathy. Yeah, of course I remember her name. So Sister Kathy, I graduate college, don't know what I want to do, didn't take my father's advice in terms of looking at career fairs and everything. I'm just thinking, okay, job is going to appear. Sister Kathy tells me about a school that's about to start in Cleveland. I wasn't even sure that I wanted to stay in Northeast Ohio. And I remember my first thing I said to her was I don't want to be a teacher. I'll never forget that. And then it gets to the point where it's either look at this job a little more seriously, or I got to go back home to Chicago, which I knew that was an option for me. So I take an interview. The first guy I meet was Rich Clark, and I'll never forget this. The first thing I asked Rich, just based on what I'm supposed to ask in an interview, was he's telling me about the school, and I really don't get the whole concept of the Cristo Rey network and everything, but I'm like, do you guys have benefits? And that was my first, that was what I was supposed to say. So he gave a similar laugh. He was like, yeah, we got benefits. But I didn't know what I was getting into, but he explained, the corporate work study program, which I was a part of. And then honestly, I never saw a more beautiful model of exposing, our youth through education to a world outside that they never, knew existed, and honestly marrying a world that they were going to be a part of very soon, and just giving them full access to that environment. And then just, again, meeting guys like yourself, really embracing the role model, experience. I can't say enough about it. I mean, there were just so many great things that came out of there because, it's really just it really developed my passion for education, so much that, to bring this thing full circle for me is, that lifestyle that I mentioned, having enough time to really dive deeper into, perfecting, if you can, urban education.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's your experience with Rich. Your first time talking.
Yeah.
With him.
Yeah.
Anybody else any other stories you can think of?
From St. Martin?
Yeah, that you kind of remember that were major moments.
Yeah, because for me personally, I'll never forget this. I'm 25 years old at this time, and, my dad was in corporate America, so I always kind of looked up to him. He was kind of my role model, and he would tell me how, he would be talking to, he worked at Fermilab, which basically, it was a science, it was a whole campus for physicists, and he was just the HR, I shouldn't say just, but he was the HR director, so he would hire all these physicists and things of that nature.
Wow.
But I remember just kind of the empowerment he felt talking at, these functions and things, and just kind of being the man, you know what I mean? And so I'll never forget that we were in a law firm that overlooked the Brown Stadium, and it was one of the first times that, I kind of ran the show, and so I've got all these lawyers, I'm talking about 12 deep, and there, it's kind of your classic thing where it's the big windows behind you and it's the oval table, and it's just me representing St. Martin and just having that feeling like, damn, this is cool. Like, I'm 24 years old and they're hanging on to every word that I say because first I was so passionate about the program, but I knew what I was talking about. But a lot of other guys my age didn't have that experience of being in that corporate setting. So, and saying all that to say is, I felt empowered, and I felt like, all the places you'll go type of moment. Right. So it really stuck with me too. Like that. Like, I'm like, yeah, you can just, like, this could just be the start of it.
It was like a battery in your back.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I talked to Rich, one of the stories he brought up that you kind of shed light on, like, for him was, I guess there was an instance where a kid had some issues outside early on, got beat up, and Rich or someone calls the police take about 45 minutes to get there, and when they do get there, they're messing with a kid that actually goes to the school, and Rich, like, and you tell Rich, like, this is my, this is an example of what we go through, and it's funny how he remembers that being a moment for him where you really made a connection for him of what the students might be seeing on everyday life. Not to say that all police are like that or anything like that, but just how different the two worlds can be.
And the funny thing about that is, again, you're talking to a guy that grew up, basically in the suburbs of Chicago.
Right.
So I wasn't privy to, a lot of police brutality and anything like that. But as a black person, you still have instances where, it's still the same. And so it was, an inner city kid, a black inner city kid, a black kid from the burbs, and a white guy, again, who works inner city and from the burbs. So you had all the dynamics there.
You say right in your face.
Yeah, right in your face. And that's, it's great that shout out to Rich because, that might not have resonated with many people. And, Rich got it right away. And it was, I love him for it. And I don't love him for that, but just that he's able to embrace those situations and really, it resonated with him, and he's able to listen to young, old, black, white, rich, poor, and that's why I think the school, St. Martin has been so great is because of that kind of leadership.
And to go along that line, that point, one of the reasons why this is called Circulate is this idea of people having perspective. And what you described and really described in this scenario is having a perspective to say, wow, like, let me take a step back from my own perspective and understand, someone else's. Now, to jump back into real estate, I think it's interesting that what you do, being from where you're from, your connection to St. Martin, I think is really interesting in perspective you're able to bring into real estate and the type of real estate you do. So can you kind of, going back into real estate, can you kind of talk about what your focus is, and kind of get into like that first year you realizing, oh, I need to do this and that.
Yeah. So, and again, just to clarify, there's basically two aspects to my company, which is the real estate transaction side, and the other side is the property management piece, and it's kind of like the yin and yang. They kind of go together. It fits very well, and trust me, I didn't plan it that way, but I definitely recognize the opportunity. But the first part of that is just the real estate investment side. So it goes back to that investor I was telling you about that was buying the 10, 12 houses a month. So, Cleveland is right now, and it has been for the last several years, just kind of this hotbed for residential real estate investment because, as everybody knows, the market value is, really plummeted about, 10 years, with the crash and everything. And Cleveland is one of the worst hit areas. So wherever there's a worst hit area, there's a great opportunity. And a lot of investors literally come from all over the world to take advantage of that opportunity, basically, in terms of buying these homes, renovating these homes, and then selling them and as turnkey rental properties. So I got thrown into that mix really quickly. I mean, if you can imagine, with 10, 12 houses a month, I'm in 100 a month because, going through these houses. So, my job is to go ahead.
Real quick, where are these homes and what does turnkey mean?
Yeah, great question. So most of these homes are in Cleveland city limits. And turnkey basically means that you have an investment property that is either, what we consider quote unquote rent ready, meaning the work has already been done, it's been fully rehabbed, or it's already cash flowing, meaning there's a tenant in the house. Okay. So that has been my world for the last, 4 years. Just, my day starts with putting on the same 2 pairs of jeans that I've been wearing, these dirty baggy jeans, Timberlands, and, a hoodie in the winter and, the old t-shirt in the summertime. And I get in my car and I drive and I literally Skype investors through homes that they potentially want to buy. And some of these homes are $5,000 and almost falling to the ground with, God knows what in them. And other homes are, a little bit better. But that's my world. So in terms of investment, and that's why, Monument is the investor's broker. That's the niche. We're not like your more traditional real estate agent where we're, selling homes to owner occupants and everything. It's just, investment properties. So if you can imagine, these investors buy these properties, they rehab them, they sell them, and then, again, if you're in Turkey, you might not have even seen the house and you bought it, and now you need somebody to manage it. So a lot of these end users or end owners have not seen their houses, and now they're trusting me to manage their portfolio for them. And so that's where the property management aspect comes in. And the niche, again, is being in these C and sometimes D class areas, which, it's totally, it takes a different approach and strategy to manage it effectively.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, what can you take me through your process? Do you manage homes outside of these areas? What kind of, are you just focused on this area?
Yeah.
What do you? Yeah. What is why do you think you're so effective in kind of growing your business in these areas?
There's 2 things, and the first is just my experience. Like I said, I started buying properties for myself 10 years ago now, and so I literally started, and I would encourage a lot of people to start this way. I was hands-on. I mean, I had one property. I was the guy running there and collecting the rent. I was learning how to change out water tanks. I was very, very hands-on. I was learning most importantly, I was learning how to manage tenants, not necessarily the house. So, someone says, hey, I don't have it. I'll have it this next week, and going through that, or somebody saying, the nice, sweet old lady that seems so unassuming and, she's going to be a great tenant starts, gets evicted 3 months later. Right. You know what I mean? And then the guy that comes through looking like he might be the biggest drug dealer in the city, is actually a great guy that has a good job that pays, and he's a perfect tenant. So, so just learning that dynamic. And then to get back to what you said, why we're good is, so one is just the acumen that I've gotten over the years. And 2, as cliche as it may sound, just because we care. It's not just me, but me and my team care about what we're doing, and we recognize honestly the paucity of quality property management in inner city. And so again, where we manage, where our focus and our niche is, Cleveland city limits, or, C and D class neighborhoods and their surrounding suburbs. So we do manage in, Cleveland Heights, Bedford, but, our
immediate surrounding suburbs.
Yeah.
Now,
so, yeah.
One of your blogs, you talk about what is it? Your initial starts to your blog. We just wanted to build something.
Mm-hmm.
What's that building process been like in terms of just, when did you know, it's time for me to hire someone? It's time for me to get more help on the team.
Yeah. I think every business owner, entrepreneur probably goes, obviously they go through similar things. When it's time, when the money that you're making meets the time that you either need or don't have. And by that I mean, you're working 12-hour days by yourself, and you're like, you know what, I could be making more if I had somebody helping me, or I could delegate or relinquish some of this responsibility, and I have enough money to pay for it. And trust me, I've been so lucky, because when you start off, you are underpaying people significantly. So you basically are, working with people that you know and trust, and pseudo friends, but pseudo business partners, or and just people that see your dream or see your vision, or just come to you through divine intervention. Honestly, I'm sure, did that answer your question? Or
that answered it. But do you remember any specific job, like were you doing 5 different things, and then you were like, I need to let go of these 2? What were those? If you remember.
Yeah, I definitely remember, like, when we first started, and again, I'm talking property management. It was me and my accountant, her name was Karima. And Karima had a full-time job. So we would literally every day started for a year. Every day started, get up and work out, first of all. Health is wealth. But, by 6:30, Karima would get to work early, and me and her would start on the phone, no later than 6:30. So 6 o'clock, 6:30. We'd debrief, go over what needed to be, what needed to be handled. And I was operations. I was taking maintenance calls. I was, doing the leasing. I was doing everything. And Karima was helping on the administrative end. And I'm talking, again, at least 6, 7, 8 months where it's just Karima. And then you get to a point, and I don't remember when that point exactly happens.
I guess around that 6, 7, 8 month mark. How many homes do you think you were managing at that point?
I want to say we got up to maybe close to, we were still under 100, I think. Because it started, because I would say between 75 and 100 homes.
Okay.
75 and 100 units. So,
okay.
You might be
units have double.
Right.
So you had between 75 and 100 units.
Yeah.
You and Karima working together.
Yeah.
You have some people who are fixing the properties for you, right? You're not doing that part.
Correct. So you're basically going back to your, your bread and butter in terms of, all the people that you've worked with on the maintenance side in the last 10 years, and asking them if they can do it and if they can help. And that's it. And, you're obviously paying them, but you're still managing that process. So, you do that for, again, anywhere 6 months to a year, and, you just realize, hey, we got to hire somebody else, and who else can we hire to help out?
Right.
And honestly, and we can probably talk about this, but personnel, we've had so many people come and go, and that's one of the challenges. But so I don't remember who was the next person that we officially hired or anything. But a lot of people, honestly, have come and gone. But you just start to recognize, hey, if somebody could take over this leasing part for me, then I'd have more time to focus on this. Mm-hmm. And so you find somebody, say, hey, literally, like, hey, you want to try this out for me? I can pay you this. And just people that honestly, that's what you start reaching out to.
Right.
So it wasn't until maybe, again, about 6 months ago or 9 months ago that we actually start doing, reaching out Indeed and start reaching out for other personnel.
And 6 months or 9 months ago, this is after a year and a half of, or how long is that?
Well, it's been close. We officially started this operation in April of 2016.
Okay.
So it hasn't even been 2 full years yet.
All right. So from April of 2016 until now, how many properties do you?
Right now, we currently manage a little over 550 properties.
So you manage 550 properties, not units, properties.
Units, I'm sorry.
550 units.
Yes.
Okay. And in April, you were basically at?
Yeah, we went from 0 to 550 in less than 2 years.
In less than 2 years. Someone listening to that is going to be like, that is ridiculous growth.
It really is.
Now, I think one of the ways that you've been able to do this is by, being a good leader, but also I think the system you have in place, which in terms of one of the things you do, right, is you don't have an office. Mm-hmm. Can you explain a little bit how that works and how that's been going?
Yep. And this is one of the things where, again, it didn't necessarily know where we were going, but I knew when I knew it right away, like, this is the direction I want to go, if that makes sense. So we use our property management software. It's called Appfolio. Literally, my wife looked it up, and she said, hey, you should use this. And I was like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Because she's like, hey, Byron, I set this appointment up. Get on the phone call. And it was great because this was really the tool that we needed. And they're like they're number one in the property management software industry. And so being able to utilize that technology and that software, I knew right away, I'm like, hey, we don't have to work at an office. And I think it's just about being young enough to take, to recognize that, where we're going in terms of just technology and everything and where the world, I think, is going, and to kind of be, cutting edge. As, everybody thinks when you open a property management company, you need to have an office. Everybody thinks when you open a business, you need to have an office. And it's almost, it validates you, if that's a word, but it doesn't, takes away your validity if you don't have an office. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no. And it's definitely something you deal with at first, but one, it was strictly at first from a cost perspective standpoint. It was like, I don't have enough money to get a building and water and electricity. But then I was like, hey, we could really revolutionize. I think it's just, for lack of a better term, Gary, I think it's just cool to be like, hey, we have a virtual office and a very successful virtual office, and doing it, in property management, which is, it's unheard of from my perspective. I really try to look it up, and there's really nobody else out there, especially at this number of units that we have, that does it from home. And that has its own set of challenges too. Don't get me wrong, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's, one of the things, we've talked about it a few times where I'm like always amazed by you focusing on doing that. Have you talking to some of your employees? Have they ever talked to you about some of the things they like about having a virtual office? Yeah. Some of the things they like.
Team members, not employees.
Your team members. Same kind of leader he is. He likes to empower everyone.
Absolutely. How do they like it? Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great question, because I think, for one, that's been, I guess, the balancing factor of not always being able to pay everybody what they probably should be making, but at least they get to work from home. You know what I mean? So and honestly, I didn't recognize it as much. I didn't think it would be as, I guess, effective as it was, because that wasn't the reason. It was, but that's why we were able to get a lot of people to at least try us out and come on board with us, is because they were like, hey, all right, well, I might not make as much as I did at this place, but I don't have to spend this much money in gas, and I love just working in my pajamas all day, honestly. And so I think that was a huge benefit to a lot of them. Where it kind of hurts you sometimes is just you have to really, really, really try to perfect your communication internally. In an office, you can reach over to the next office and say, hey, did you get this done? Is this fixed? Hey, got it. Mm-hmm. You can yell across the room. In our business or in our company, you really have to send that follow-up email just saying done, or got it, or received, or or got a question. And that's honestly, again, that's something that we're not perfect at it. But that's my job, is just to make sure that we, perfect or get strong in our weaknesses.
So a few months in, it was just you and your team member. How many team members do you have now?
Yeah, there's 32 of us all together. 7 of those team members are, your W-2 employees. They're full-time. And then the rest makes up our leasing agents and our maintenance staff.
Wow, that is a lot of growth in just a short amount of time. I guess just from you personally, could you run through a few things you've learned in this past year, just about being a leader, some things you've kind of grown to realize?
Mm-hmm. What first comes to my head is, I was listening to a podcast, and it really just supported what I was doing, which is, and I forget that. I really want to, I don't want to steal his stuff. We'll have to get that later. But there's a podcast where it's a property management company, and they had tremendous growth as well. And one of the things he said to focus on was, as the leader of the company, is focusing on your business, not in your business, and really just speaking to the strength of delegating and, setting up processes where, you don't have to still take every call, and you don't have to know the details of every day-to-day thing in your operation, but to really, delegate it and empower other people to make sure that you can focus on the growth of your company and the sustainability of your company. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing I've learned leading the company. I think another thing, and again, this has always kind of been innate with me, but just saying, hey, I messed up, and hey, I screwed up, and hey, it's my fault. And I think it's very, I think it resonates with the rest of the team when the leader says, I screwed up, or my bad, or, I dropped the ball. So that's, again, not necessarily that I learned, but just something that I've seen positive reinforcement with. And that's, just, again, more than anything is just the delegation, the relinquishing of the quote unquote power to the point where, you should just be overseeing, not even so much making all the decisions.
Okay. So last question for episode 1. Mm-hmm. What are your goals for your business in this coming year? For the next year or so, what are some things that you want to be able to do?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it because, and it goes back to the whole virtual office thing. I think it allows us to be flexible. The goal is to be in another market. Mm-hmm. That market right now, we've just begun to get into Columbus. So I wouldn't say we're all the way in, but, we manage a few units down there, but it's, we haven't tackled the market yet the way I would like to. Uh-huh. But I think it's really a hell of an opportunity to be able to tell, because, you're working with investors, like hundreds of investors that do own properties in California and Texas and, all over the world, literally. So when you're doing right by them and, they've got 4 or 5 other property managements and consolidate that for your customer, I think it's just a huge opportunity. And I really, that's the goal. And I really think we're going to be able to just do unprecedented things by being in other markets and still being a virtual office. So to answer your question, Columbus and any inner city, every major city has a C and D class neighborhood that needs residential property management, and to focus on that and to be number one in that and to, just thrive is the goal.
Why do you care about focusing on those neighborhoods so much?
That's a great question.
Why is that important?
Yeah. It was twofold. One is just is strictly from a capitalistic standpoint. These homes that we manage, it's unfortunate, but they're going to be investment properties. There's not a ton of home ownership as, maybe your outlying suburbs. So that's one. It's just, it's for sustainability purposes. These homes will still be investment properties 10, 20 years from now. The second part is really the civic or the I'm not sure if it's philanthropic, but the civic responsibility and duty is to say, hey, they're not our homes, but we are the very direct contact between the tenant and the owner. And they really listen to what we say. Like we have, just almost as much authority, if you will, and to say, hey, we have a chance to make sure that our tenants, because they are customers too. We have 2 customers. Our tenants live in quality homes, mm-hmm. and homes that they like and that they take accountability for, and they know that, they're going to be able to live in a safe and comfortable environment, as well as, making sure we have the longevity for our owners, saying, hey, we know these properties are going to be here, so let's make it aesthetically, attractive. Let's make sure, your maintenance is good. So we control that. That's empowering in itself. And it's for our community. It's for just, right now, obviously for Cleveland, Cleveland is my home. So, it's taking care of home, basically.
Right. All right. Really appreciate it, Byron. It's episode 1. And guys, stay tuned and come back for episode 2, where we talk a little bit more about Byron's company and some things he's working on for the future. Thanks. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed episode 1 of the Byron Thompson series on Circulate. Stay tuned going forward. In upcoming episodes, you hear Byron discuss the core competencies of property management, tips on real estate investing, and a little bit more about how Byron has been able to grow his business. In between time, feel free to leave comments and reach out to us on circulate.com and tell us what you think about the episode, any questions you may have, or anything that you wish we would have done differently in the first episode. Feel free to reach out, and we look forward to your feedback. Please share the podcast, and please share the links to all the episodes that you like on social media. And thanks for your support, and see you next time. Thanks. Bye.